Hello and welcome to the Inside Elland Road Podcast. I'm Chris O'Connor. I'm here with Graham. How are you doing, Graham?
I'm all right, thanks. Slightly under the weather, and also taking time out from my precious annual leave to speak to you. So I do hope that you appreciate it.
Look, I think I speak on behalf of all of us when I say we always appreciate a chance to get to listen to you talk to us about Leeds United. And we are talking for the third time this season after a Leeds United win, which I think as a newly promoted club, we still shouldn't take that for granted. It's a good, solid start. Caveat, West Ham were unbelievably bad, particularly in midfield and defence. And Leeds made it more nervy than they should have done. But yeah, what were your takeaways from the game?
Yeah, West Ham, absolutely abysmal. They might even be worse than Wolves. Just so easy for Leeds in that first half to cut through the middle of them. I think what summed it up for me was when Ethan Ampadu, we were saying, in fact, you said it, Leeds United need a foot on the ball. Ampadu puts a foot on the ball and realises that it's probably easier to run forward through the entire West Ham team than it is to go backwards. So he did just that, and he ran all the way to the box, and then his left foot completely deserted him. And it just said to me that this is a West Ham team that has a very good front three, four attacking players. Behind them, not so much. I mean, some good fullbacks, but in the middle of the park, they just looked absolutely all at sea. I know we were saying before the game, as we often do, kind of predicting what the crowd will be like and saying, if West Ham go a goal ahead, this place could get very, very nervy. If they were to go 2 goals ahead, this place could actually turn a bit toxic, because it'll be a while since Leeds had won, and Leeds did exactly what they needed to do in that first 15 minutes. I mean, slightly aided and abetted by West Ham, it has to be said, but you can only beat what's put in front of you.
Yeah, thinking of that amplitude chance, if I was saying to you before the match, there will be 2 almost Maradona-esque runs from their own half leading to a goal from Leeds United. Could you guess the 2 players? Who do you think you would? Who do you think you'd pick? And would it have been Ampadu and Aaronson?
I would not have correctly predicted either of those. Trying to think which was my favourite. Ampadu spotted a lot of space, and it was a classy run. Like, it was a very classy run, but obviously the shot at the end of it wasn't great. Aaronson, however, was like, I've never said this. I've never said this term out loud because I hate it with all of my being. But when the Americans used to call him the Medford Messi, I feel like for the first time ever, he actually lived up to that title, because that honestly was one of the best, most stirring runs we've seen at Elland Road in a long time. Where he picked the ball up, how he beat players and left them in our wake, the kind of slaloming body swerves to get away from players. He took Leeds out of a period of pressure, took them all the way to the other end of the pitch. And yes, the shot had a hardy deflection on it, but imagine if that had gone in and not hit the bar. Like, imagine.
Graham, I was robbed of one of the funniest moments I think I may have ever had at Elland Road. Look, it's fair to say that a lot of people had questioned Aaronson's output in terms of goals and assists, and definitely at Premier League level. And some people would say perhaps you were at the forefront of that crowd. So to see him almost score a Maradona goal while sitting next to you, I think we were both going, no, and like almost on our feet at the end. Yeah, look, it's worth saying that he did 2 or 3 moments in that game that if Jorginho Rutter had done them, we'd all be waxing lyrical about them. But because of the context of what we've seen with Maradona previously, he won't get the credit for it. And people will probably be annoyed and say that we're even like talking him up too much from the performance. But no, I think in context, I thought he was absolutely excellent. Yeah, and it makes me think now that he passed, I guess he starts Brighton. Celebrate Christmas in style at Uyare. Rooftop views, carol-inspired feasts, and festive cocktails, creating Leeds' most unforgettable holiday atmosphere.
Maybe. Like, I hate to dampen anyone's enthusiasm for anything. I don't ever like to do that. But I would like, over the course of this podcast, to both praise him for what I thought. I mean, I gave him 9 out of 10, so I'm not rolling back on anything. I'm not retrospectively re-rating Brenden Aaronson's performance, but I would also like to just add slight notes of caution. Like a full-bodied praise with notes of caution. He scores a goal, right, because he's in the right place to score it. Again, always in the right place, which is a strength of his. And we talked about that. I would also say you've got so much of the net to aim for, Brenden. How have you still managed to put it exactly where the keeper is? But the ball has gone in, right? The ball's gone in. So
That's too harsh.
He deserves his. That is harsh. He deserves his moment, because he's got the goal. But what needed to follow, I think, was more important from Aaronson than just the goal. End product is massive because he's being judged on that, and that's 2 goals now in the Premier League in 45 or whatever. But it was so much more important what he did for the rest of the game. And I thought on both sides of the ball, he was excellent. I thought he was smart. I thought he looked after the ball really well. I thought he went after West Ham and made life uncomfortable. He made some big tackles. He didn't. I feel like he looked after the ball more often than he lost it, way more often than he lost it. And his performance in general, even before we got to that incredible run in the second half, where he's just leaving defenders in his wake, I just thought that's exactly what you want, from a player, that all of that effort, but with actually some substance to it, some quality to it, not just running, not just pressing and defending. Because Farke can talk about that until the cows come home. It's not going to win Aaronson the kind of support that Farke wants. Farke did make a point last week, didn't he? Or actually, after the game, he said we need to get behind him a bit more because the criticism he gets is a bit over the top, and he's trying his best and all of that. Trying his best is great, but it's a bare minimum. Running is a bare minimum. What people want to see is quality in the Premier League, and I thought he actually brought that in that performance. And somebody tried telling me that I was wrong on Twitter. They tried telling me that Rodon was the best player on the pitch, and I only give him an 8. That person was. All opinions are valid, but some opinions are wrong, and that was a wrong opinion. I thought Aaronson was man of the match in that game. Perhaps not by a distance, because there were other good performances in the team, but he was man of the match by a head, not a head and shoulders, a head.
You say it's a bare minimum, but thinking of the West Ham team, particularly the midfield, that kind of running is not actually a given in teams, particularly if morale's down. And one of the reasons why I always look, I felt like he should have been dropped for that game. I think that before the numbers aren't good enough Premier League level up to that point. I still think with the information we had prior to the game, that was still the correct opinion to hold. But I do like the fact he does. There's running and there's running yourself into the ground, and he seems to play almost every game like it's a final. And I'm a Leeds fan, and he puts that Leeds shirt on and plays his heart out for it. Caveat again that he did leave us when we got relegated, and there was perhaps some sour grapes around that. But yeah, look, I'm glad for him. I hope it's a corner turn that maybe he believes he can actually be a good offensive player at this level. But we need to probably see it against a team that aren't that bad, which would be Brighton.
That's the other thing, isn't it? It's yes, it was needed. Yes, you can only beat who's put in front of you, and it was timely. We should also note that Farke added a bit more context to his performance at Burnley, where he got a commercial flight. Imagine the horror of a commercial flight. But he wasn't on a private jet, able to sleep in a comfortable bed all the way back from the States. He played on Wednesday morning or whatever it was, and got a commercial flight back, and hadn't had any sleep really, and then got back into training, and then straight onto the pitch against Burnley. So there was context to that, but it was West Ham as well, and they are honking like absolutely terrible football team. But he created danger. Like I was saying, it wasn't just effort. There were some good crosses from him. He popped up in really good areas. He continued to run until he was taken off. I mean, he continued to run and run and run until he was taken off. He showed serious durability. So yeah, we can add little bits of caution and little bits of context, but fair play. I think we just rounded off with well done. Good performance. Let's see it again. Let's see that all of that offensive kind of danger and confidence in beating players, and let's see that again.
Yeah, and no one going into the season would have probably thought him as one of our right winger options. I know he played one of the friendlies at right wing, I think, and actually did quite well. Did he get an assist in one of the games? But now, I guess, looking at how we have set up this year with that three in the middle, you'd be hard pressed, I guess, to pick him as one of those three, just because of the players ahead of him in that position and the kind of really the physicality that we seem to want there, and energy. So it's a good option to have. Look, say James or Nonto do start and they start producing, then Aronson's a really good option for last 20, 30 minutes if you have got a lead, because he can run for days and he's going to condense 90 minutes worth of energy into 30 minutes probably and just not stop running. Yeah, so look, it bodes well. And I want to also say that 3 points in the Premier League it should never be taken for granted. I know West Ham and Wolves don't look great now, but they don't come easy. And even still, West Ham could have still got something from that game with that nervy finish, which I think we should talk about the kind of the last half hour. And even though they are a really poorly constructed side, they have individual players. Like when Bowen got on the ball, and even Paqueta towards the end of the game, you can tell that they're excellent and that they've got really high quality. And they can be poor as a side, but one of those players could just do something. And I put Somerville in that bracket as well, though I think he was taken off late, if I remember rightly. Yeah, he was.
He was, yeah.
Yeah. So I don't want to take the 3 points for granted with everyone going, oh, it was just West Ham. We got 3 points in the Premier League, and it's another 3 points towards our goal. And they don't come easy. Even if a team looks awful, Nuno will probably get a tune out of them at some point. I'm sure they'll need to sign some people in January. But yeah, it was a good win, and it was a much, much needed win after that Burnley result, because you made the point of, you look at those two games and you say 4 points would be kind of what you need, really. And we didn't get any point in the first game. So it meant that we really needed to win that.
Yeah, they did. There was a little bit of pressure on Leeds, I thought, to go and win that game. And the only real debate or negativity I've seen around the performance is that they didn't get the third and they didn't go and finish it off. And I think that's probably worth talking about. But the verdict that I wrote about the game was Leeds were good enough to beat West Ham. They had to beat West Ham, and they did. They will need to be better against better teams. And the reason I said that was because at 2-0 up, yes, I can understand what Daniel Farke is saying. If they went for transition every time it was there, attack for 10 seconds and then maybe defend for 3 minutes, with players struggling the way they had been in illness in the camp, I could see why he was worried, because he is, as he's told us before, a realistic pessimist. But for me, the third goal kills that West Ham team, and it probably brings 3 more goals. You probably go on and win that game 5 or 6, because they were so bad in the first half, so porous, so open, and Leeds were so dangerous that I really felt like the third goal was there for the taking. I thought it had arrived when Okafor went on that run and then bent one for the far corner. It just went past the post. I thought that was going to be it. And I wanted to see them come out after the interval and just put their foot on the gas and take it away from West Ham. But what we saw was the complete opposite. It was Leeds in kind of, all right, we've got a 2-0 lead. You've got to come at us now. And they sat in. They countered when they could, but it felt for a long time in the second half that Leeds couldn't get out. They couldn't keep the ball. They couldn't get a foot on the ball. They couldn't take play up the pitch for long enough. And it felt to me like you were just inviting unnecessary pressure against a team that you're more than good enough to play against. It felt a little bit negative to me in the second half. I don't know the physical capabilities of the team and what was possible in terms of running in that second half and all of that. Maybe it was strictly necessary that they sat in and they conserved energy and whatnot. But I don't know, it just felt like an opportunity missed to go and put them to the sword properly. And instead what we got was that second half of kind of sitting back, a few forays upfield, a few counters, and then a very, very avoidable goal that made it just, you could hear all of Elland Road going, how the hell has it come to this? How have we ended up only winning 2-1 with seconds left?
Yeah, I think the start of the second half, the first 10, 15 minutes, were okay, if I remember. Yeah, and then it was like around the 60-minute mark where it was almost like whether it was this virus in the week and maybe Farke alluded to the fact that perhaps the week was worse and he was letting on, and that a lot of players were actually playing on empty. And the first half was about 2 hours long anyway, with all the injury time, and that they couldn't give much more, or whether it was tactical or that kind of subconscious, right? We're just going to sit back and hopefully see this game out. But I felt like, and it seems weird to say, but I thought it was our worst home performance of the season in terms of how we controlled the game. Like against Bournemouth and Spurs, even though we got 1 point from those two games, I thought we were in control for large parts of the game, even late on, and we were the side creating chances. We looked more dangerous. We were winning the midfield battle. We were kind of winning the territorial battle. But the last 30 minutes was just bizarre in some ways. But Farke did allude to the fact that there were mitigating circumstances. I'm going to take him at his word and put that as a bit of an anomaly, because we've seen those players perform against better players and control the game better. Yeah, and look, it was about the result. It was about the 3 points at the end of the day. It left a little bit of a sour taste losing that clean sheet. Also, I had 2 Leeds players starting on my fantasy football side, so that was a bit of a bitter blow. And I tried to get Rodon in, but it's gone up to 4.1, and I didn't have that. I only had room for a 4.0, and he scored again. He scored again, Graham. It's becoming. When's it going to end? I hope never. But Longstaff to Rodon. I think I showed you a few people I know through people who like a bet, had picked it 95-1 Longstaff assist Rodon goal before the game, because West Ham are terrible on corners, and we seem to have that combination there every game. Unfortunately, I didn't back that because I was chatting to you, and when I'm chatting to you, you have my attention. I'm not going to be on my phone. But yeah, it was another. We've got to be saying that is an option this season now, right? That is the 3rd time he scored this season, twice for us. And I think Longstaff's hit him every single game, and I think maybe 10 times in the Bournemouth game.
If I was Craig Bellamy, I would be digging deep into Sean Longstaff's heritage. He hasn't played for England, has he? I don't think he has. This is where we need a northeast football correspondent on the podcast. May he rest in peace. Yeah, just what a combination. The Longstaff Rodon combination is magnificent. I feel a little bit aggrieved that we were denied it for so long. Like, I don't know why it was not a thing to begin with, but it suddenly became a thing. But boy, am I glad that Leeds have made this discovery. And it's turned Joe Rodon into the greatest defensive attacking force that I think Elland Road has probably ever seen. It's just, he's a magnet for the ball in the opposition penalty area. And, I tweeted it at the time, he's not a 50p head anymore, he's a £50 million head, because the more goals he can score for Leeds, the higher their chances are of survival, because it's a great source of goals. You want goals from anywhere, everywhere. And Longstaff has this knack of finding him. Fair play to you as well, because you said seconds before the corner was taken, you said Longstaff corner, Joe Rodon goal, and that's exactly what happened. Also, credit to Paqueta for one of the funniest attempts at marking that I think I've ever seen in a football game at that level. Absolutely incredible that he made as if he was going to mark him. Rodon made an ounce of movement. Rodon maybe shuffled his body slightly, and Paqueta thought, "Oh, you've lost me. You've lost me. You're gone. There's no way I'm getting it back now." In reality, he'd moved about a foot, and Paqueta just thought, "No, it's beyond me." After 15 minutes of a game in the Premier League, I mean, just that's the kind of thing that sends you down in the Premier League. That kind of mentality. I mean, not that I'm saying that Paqueta could have got up above Rodon and stopped him, but there are ways and means of putting a player off and putting a bit of pressure on and actually making it difficult for him. Otherwise, what's the point in even marking? You might as well go and stand on the halfway line and wait for play to come your way. But Rodon gets his head on it again, and Leeds are 2-0 up. And it is really fun to see Leeds scoring from corners and being dangerous from corners. So yeah, long may that combination continue.
Maybe Paqueta actually had a bet on it. I'm of course,
you can't say that.
of course, making light about his situation, which he was found innocent of. So yeah, and do bet responsibly. Anyone who would like a dabble. But there was a weird Premier League season where Steve Bruce, I think, got like 13 goals. I'm not making this up. He got double figures goals. I'm almost certain for one season. So I remember looking once thinking, that's not right. Like, is that a typo? I think if Rodon carries on, we could see him get like 7, 8, which would be such an amazing asset if we could, because those goals were equal points, definitely in games. And yeah, it's something we weren't expecting, but I'm so glad we found it. And it's nice to have a corner taker and free set piece taker that I have a bit of faith in to like put in a dangerous delivery in terms of Longstaff. And obviously, if we do get free kicks in a good range and stacks on the pitch, he's shown he can do it as well. So yeah, it just gives us another weapon. Reserve your festive table at www.uyara.co.uk, where Christmas sparkle meets South Indian soul on Leeds' most sophisticated rooftop terrace. Other things I thought worth mentioning were Perry came in, and obviously Biel made his first start. I thought both were solid, if not, I don't think Perry did anything wrong, really. I thought he made that save in the first half that was right at him, and then he dealt with it straight after from the bicycle kick from Bowen. Biol, I thought, was pretty solid throughout, seemed to win a lot. Made one mistake late on, if I remember rightly, but it's hard to be flawless, especially just coming in. But yeah, I thought both handled themselves quite well. I don't know if you agree.
Yeah, Perry, he didn't have a great deal to do in the game, did he? But what he had to do, he was sharp. We gave him a bit of a stick for his kicking earlier in the season, and yeah, I thought his kicking was pretty bang on. I thought there was a marked improvement from what we saw against Newcastle. Certainly, he was finding Calvert-Lewin, he was finding Okafor, he was sending it into good areas. He wasn't just ballooning it up in the air, and we saw one of his throws as well, which is always a highlight. Yeah, absolutely fine. I thought no issues there, and Biol, yeah, pretty solid. Yeah, there was an error late in the game. I'm trying to remember. Did he pass it straight to someone else? I can't remember exactly what he did, but it wasn't costly. It wasn't a major error, and he wasn't at fault for the goal really. I think it was Ampadu that Fernandez ran off, wasn't it? Into the area completely free and flicked the header home. Yeah, Biol was fine, was solid. I'd probably quite like to see him again against Brighton. I felt like he was very, very good in the air, which you'd expect. He headed a lot away. He and Rodon are not going to miss a lot of aerial balls. I don't imagine Brighton would go too aerial against Leeds this weekend. So something for Farke to think about, definitely, though, because there was nothing to make you think, well, Pascal Struijk needs to come straight back in. There were no alarm bells ringing from Biol for me. The only alarm bells really that rang in the game was the side of Gabriel Goodmanson going off, because he has really been a favourite, hasn't he, so far? And he started really well too. Thought he was excellent, linking up with Okafor, getting down the byline. He won the corner from which Rodon scored, and then he picks up this looked like a back injury, landed awkwardly. I think Farke didn't really have much of an update on it after the game, but James Justin came in, and that's the best we've seen of him so far. I thought he was excellent.
Yeah, and again, it's kind of that boring side of recruitment where you cover for things like your fullback going off injured. But Justin handled himself very well. I thought he was fine, and we didn't look like we didn't look like one of our best players of the season has gone off, because I think Goodmanson has. In fact, Justin kind of slotted in and did absolutely fine. The one person I thought I was a bit disappointed in his performance, because I just really like him, and I was calling for him to come back in the team. I thought Tanaka wasn't as good as we'd seen him. He wasn't as good as the Everton game. It just wasn't working for him. That's not to say he was terrible. I don't know what score you gave him. If it was, I'd probably guess a 6 or something. Maybe he was kind of he was fine. He had a decent chance at the edge of the area in the first half, which he put over, but a couple of bits where he was kind of a bit out-muscled maybe, or it just didn't quite happen for him. And a lot of us were saying it wasn't quite happening for Stack, so we asked him to come in. He didn't exactly seize the opportunity, but again, it's hard. He would have had some international travel as well, and coming into the side, it poses a question for Brighton, because Stack obviously has a bit more physicality. Whereas Brighton aren't the most physical side. They are a very good kind of passing technical side. So I don't know what direction you go in. I don't know. Should we also, before we move on to Brighton, actually, I want to give Matty on the Outside Elland Road podcast a shout out, because on debut he predicted a 2-1 win. So puts a bit of pressure on you, I'd say, Graham. Still waiting for your first correct prediction.
Pressure is a privilege, Chris. So I don't take it as a negative. We actually spoke to Tanaka after the game in the mix zone, under duress. In fact, you could hear it being explained to him as he was brought to us that he had to do it. It was an obligation, and he was inquiring as to why he didn't have to do it in the Championship, because he used to say no. And the point was being made, it's the Premier League, you have to say yes. And after each question, he kind of shaped to leave and had to kind of be physically kept in place. Like, no, there's another one. We only asked one each, and there's a small gaggle of us. Normally it's two each. I can understand in a way, if English isn't your first language and you're not altogether entirely fluent in it yet, that you're not that keen. Doesn't really explain why he's not that keen to speak to Japanese press either, but maybe he just wants to retain this kind of enigma, aura, personality around himself. But he admitted after the game that it wasn't his best game. The 3 points were all important, but he felt like there was more to come from him. I guess in a way we can forgive it, because he won't be in his rhythm, because he hasn't played that much, has he? But we definitely need to see a bit more from him, because I think we all know that there's a real quality operator in there. He was too good for the Championship on a lot of occasions last season, and the only question mark we had over him was physicality. The Premier League is increasingly all about physicality. Teams are going more direct, teams are being more robust, more long throws, all of that. So he needs to adapt to that, and he needs to show us a bit more. But he'll probably only be able to do that with a run of games, won't he? And he hasn't had it yet. And I don't know that he's going to get it just yet.
Yeah, it's tough. It's every position in the Premier League. I guess it's the same Championship. It's just so much more. So you can't kind of if you're going to dominate teams in the Championship, maybe you can say, he could play himself in a little bit. We're going to have a lot of the ball. It's going to be a little, especially at home in certain games against the bottom half of the table. But you kind of have to hit the ground running a little bit when you get a chance in the Premier League. And he didn't quite do that. But Stack hasn't done it yet either. So it's a question mark for me what he does in that third midfield spot for Brighton. And in terms of Brighton, that is our 10th game of the season, which in my kind of 3-act structure way of looking at it, takes us out, is the end of Act 1. And it's quite a good test in terms of seeing where we are now at this point in the season, because we beat two poor sides. We beat Everton the first game of the season as well, who are looking okay, maybe mid-table, lower mid-table. Brighton are 1 point ahead of us, I think, in the table as it stands, but they are an established, very good Premier League side. And going away there is going to be a test. I think most Leeds fans would probably say it's a great point. I am going for 3, as always. But it's going to be an interesting test, and looking at the fixtures as they come, you do want something from this run of Brighton, Forest, Villa. You need to pick up some points going into those really hard games. Although actually, I think we play Liverpool twice in December. At the moment, that could be 6 points in the bag, the way they're looking. But yeah, I think you're going to be set up to make it really difficult for them, and it is a good point, however way you look at it.
Yeah, they've not had the greatest start to the season, have they? They're only a tiny bit ahead of Leeds in the table. I mean, a win over them and you go above them, and you're thinking, oh my God, what a start to the season this has been. It is the 10-game mark, so I will be investing in a wig and a gavel so that on our next pod I can pretty decisively judge Leeds United because 10 games will have been played. Yeah, a point I think is a good result. You know, they have a lot of quality. They'll play in their 4-2-3-1. They'll be terrifying if they turn the ball over in midfield and play forward. Georgie will do what Georgie does. I think we should talk about Jorginho Rutter for a bit because I miss talking about Jorginho Rutter. He was one of my all-time favourite topics on the Inside Elland Road podcast because I enjoyed watching him play football so much. You know, the way under Farke, and I think Farke deserves credit, the way he kind of blossomed and became a player that you could trust receiving the ball in his own half with his back to the opposition goal, trust him to keep the ball and do something good with it, and then take Leeds away into acres of space. I loved watching it. It was really, really fun watching him develop that season, and some of the skill that he showed, the way he left defenders for dead, some of the flicks and turns. Like he's a great footballer. Some footballers are a pleasure to watch, I think, and he is one of those. And it's like he's arrived in the Premier League at a very, very good time because you need to be big and strong and you need to be able to cover distance quickly and you need to be able to gallop through the pitch. And he's got it all for me. You know, he has all of that. Finishing was the big thing that he lacked, I think, at Leeds. He's definitely improved on that at Brighton. Maybe not to the degree that he could. He could still be a little bit more deadly, I think, but he definitely has improved on his finishing. And I love watching Match of the Day every week if I haven't had a chance to catch Brighton, just so I can see what he did in that game. He's got 2 assists this season, which is the most, I think, for them. Last season, I think his output was pretty good, and then he had an injury, didn't he, that finished him off for the season. I never really have anything bad to say about Jorginho, and it all stems from the first press conference we did with him when he signed. He was just one of the warmest, kind of sweetest human beings I think we've interviewed at Thorpe Arch. Just really open, really honest, really baffled as to why a room full of white middle-aged men didn't know this hip-hop song that he was talking about. He's great, Georgie. Racehorse owner, interesting on and off the pitch, and I really hope he has the worst game of his life on Saturday.
Feel a little bit like I think I'll probably speak for all Leeds fans here. Like you've just bumped into someone who's just waxed lyrical about how great your ex was for ages. Yeah, I was heartbroken at that sale. More so than we'd lost Somerville that summer, didn't we? And Archie Gray, obviously, that was like the soul of the club. When and I was going to be heartbroken. We went to Brentford, but the Rutter sale, when the timing of when it came, it just really hurt me because, like yourself, there's probably only a handful of footballers in my time watching Leeds that really, really like excited me, and just you just love to watch. There's players I've loved, and there's but there's a certain type of football, like Rafinha was one, probably Pablo Hernandez,
Stuart
those
Dallas.
players where they're just Stuart Dallas, players where it's just magic, and you just don't know what they're going to do, and they just get you off your feet, and they just make you laugh and smile, and a bit like if any rugby league fans are listening, I know Rob Burrow used to say that he didn't know what he was going to do when he got the ball. So he had no idea. He said defenders had no chance. He didn't know if he was going to have his left foot go over his right foot. And sometimes Rutter, when he gets the ball, it's almost like it's an instantaneous creativity decision that he doesn't know what's going to happen. And it was just so fun to watch. So yeah, that was heartbreaking. And I will always hold him in high regard. But again, I also hope he has a terrible game. But yeah, the thought of him and Minte on the wing as well, I think, is an excellent player. And Welbeck's rolling back the years and having probably the form of his life at the moment.
He's got 5 goals.
Yeah,
he's got 5 goals this season. Like what Leeds would give for a player with 5 goals. Joe Rodon's their joint top scorer with 2, along with Noah Okafor. Calvert-Lewin probably could be sat on 5 goals right now, but he's not. Welbeck is a threat, a serious threat. And how Leeds deal with him will be very, very interesting.
Yeah, and look, I have a lot of mates who will know that I have been critical of Welbeck in terms of his output. I don't think he's ever got double-figured goals in a season. I think I once made the analogy in the pub that People always talk about his work rate, and I'd say, yeah, you could have a milkman who's really friendly, really like nice to everyone on the street. He's always on time, but if he doesn't deliver the milk, like that's his job. And Welbeck doesn't get enough goals, but he's added that now, and I'm actually really glad for him because he seems like a great pro, and he just seems like a great person as well. So. Yeah, it's nice to see him doing well, but equally, I want him to have a terrible game on the weekend. And if they get any chances, him to miss them. Uh, it is a tough game. It is a tough game, but you're right. They're 1 point ahead of us in the league. They're 13th, we're 15th. They conceded 4 on the weekend. They do look like they're a little bit open. They've conceded 15 so far this season. They're going to be good in the ball. They're going to be technical, but maybe Leeds can make it ugly and make it a bit physical and rely on set pieces. And there is a path to Leeds getting points in this game. But there is a path where they can cut you open with the quality they've got. And knowing Brighton, their recruitment model, every time I watch them play, they bring on someone I've never heard of, and they're always unbelievable. And they always go to Chelsea for like 80 million a few years later. And I'm sure there'll be some players starting or coming off the bench who are just unreal talents. So they seem to have threats everywhere. But I am cautiously optimistic, Graham, which I'm sure will surprise you.
Yeah, I'm stunned by that. But then at the same time, I don't think you're insane. I really don't. This is a team that is only just outperforming you in the Premier League. Do they have more quality than the Newcastle midfield? Do they have more quality than Spurs? Those are teams that Leeds United went toe-to-toe with. And
Bournemouth as well, I'd add in.
And matched Bournemouth as well. I mean, look at Bournemouth. And look at what Leeds did to Bournemouth for large spells. I think there is an obvious route to points in this game. It's a very obvious route, and that's be physical, be direct, be hard to play against, make them run long distances, run further than them, run faster than them. I think that's the way to get a point in this game. I don't see it particularly as Jorginho's game if it's really physical. If it's a lot of ball in the air and he's not getting the ball into his feet, and if he does get it into his feet, somebody being so tight to him that he doesn't get a chance to roll you, he doesn't get a chance to turn you. Maybe Ampadu can take a yellow card there. Maybe Longstaff can take one as well. Yeah, and I wonder about Tanaka. If that's going to be your game plan, I wonder about Tanaka's place in the team, given that he didn't light it up against a terrible West Ham. So with it being an away game, I just wonder if Farke reverts to type a little bit and goes kind of more rudimentary, a bit more basic.
Yeah, I can see that. It makes you think of a key word you mentioned in a previous podcast about concentration. And some of the goals we've been punished by have been lapses in concentration. And this is a game where I feel like we really need to concentrate as much as possible for the full game. And it just makes you think of perhaps Stack could be accused of lacking it for that moment against Burnley. So it's not like I still think there's a question mark. I still think there's a question mark there. He's obviously more physical. And look, I'm not. Perhaps that was he had that issue with his rib, and like you said, if you've got a rib injury, it's going to be very hard to stay fully switched on at the highest level. And maybe he's recovered well, and maybe this game does suit him more. Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if he goes with Stack. Yeah, have you got a prediction?
I could see Brenden Aaronson starting again. That's my first prediction, because he had both James and Gnonto available to him at Fulham, and he went with Aaronson to try and lock down a very, very dangerous left-sided attack. They're away from home again against a team with very good wide players who are dangerous down the sides. I could see him going with Aaronson again, particularly after Aaronson's performance. James came off the bench. I still see it being Aaronson. Okafor hopefully will have a little bit more in him than just I was going to say 45, but that first half was 58 minutes, something like that. Still think Leeds need a little bit more from him. But in an away game where you're maybe looking to counter a little bit, or maybe looking to play off Calvert-Lewin and get somebody in behind onto a flick on or something like that, I think maybe he can add something. I too am cautiously optimistic, but I'm saying a point. I'm saying 1-1.
I'm saying 2-0 to Leeds. Hear me out. I think we're going to make it very, very tough. It's going to be like turgid in the first half. We're going to get something from a set piece, and then late on there'll be a break involving, a sub who's come on with legs, maybe James, and we'll put it to bed like with minutes to go. So it'll be basically a 1-0 game with a late sucker punch winner. 2-0 Leeds, yeah. That's what my heart is saying it, and I'm just ignoring my head. I'm going straight with the heart. Anything else new? We're recording this before the press conference today because of both our timings this week. But touch wood, you never know what comes up. But it would seem like James and Nonto should probably have featured in team training this week and should be ready for selection. So if Aaronson does start, there will be options on the bench, hopefully.
Yeah.
Book your Christmas party at Uyare. Skyline dining, bold South Indian flavours, and rooftop elegance guarantee a festive season to remember. Break involving, a sub who's come on with legs, maybe James, and we'll put it to bed like with minutes to go. So it'll be basically a 1-0 game with a late sucker punch winner. 2-0 Leeds, yeah. That's what my heart is saying it, and I'm just ignoring my head. I'm going straight with the heart. Anything else new? We're recording this before the press conference today because of both our timings this week. But touch wood, you never know what comes up. But it would seem like James and Nonto should probably have featured in team training this week and should be ready for selection. So if Aaronson does start, there will be options on the bench, hopefully.
Yeah, there will. Goodmanton's the one I'm really waiting to hear on. That's the one that I'm wanting good news on. That it was just a bruise and he's fine and he's back in team training and he's ready to go again. Although in fairness, Justin slotted in very, very well at left back, so it's not a huge concern. But I've really enjoyed watching Goodmanton. I think what he brings offensively, particularly in a game where you might not enjoy that much of the ball and you want to counter and be effective, I think he's excellent on the ball going forward for Leeds and linking up with Okafor. So that's the one I'm really looking at. I almost have already seen it in my head that Aaronson starts. I'd be surprised if he didn't. Given what we know about Daniel Farke and his kind of ethos and mentality and the way he is when players are playing well and the way he is away from home, I'd be very surprised if not. I'll tell you what I would like to see, and I think I've said this a few weeks now in a row, but I'm going to keep saying it until I see it. Dominic Calvert-Lewin scoring a goal.
Yeah, he again against West Ham, I thought it was excellent in terms of the just being tough for their defenders and an outlet and physical. But yeah, like my milkman analogy earlier, and I'm actually vegan, so it would be oat milk I would be ordering. But hopefully he delivers 2 cartons of oat milk this week in the 2-0 win, maybe, or maybe an assist for Dan James at the end of it. But yeah, because even if he's playing well, strikers are judged on goals, aren't they, by some people? So at some point, just for him, it would be nice if he can get a goal, which kind of his performances almost warrant. Yeah, that would be fantastic. Are you planning to visit the pier while you're there, or the seaside?
I'm going Friday, and as is kind of tradition, I would imagine that I'll be out for dinner with some of the media luminaries of Leeds. Your Adam Popes, your Johnny Buckins, people like that, your John Newsomes. And then Popey did mention there's a couple of park runs in Brighton of a Saturday morning. Very much depends on the lungs and how they've recovered from this really terrible cough that I don't think many could podcast, could battle their way through that to podcast. So credit to me. I am looking forward to it though. Brighton is one of the trips that I enjoy in the Premier League. I don't enjoy how out of town the stadium is. That feels unnecessary to me. It feels like a very unnecessary, almost egregious placement of a stadium for transport reasons. But I'm looking forward to it. And I'm very much looking forward to the 10-game mark being up so that we can look at the table and confidently say, yes, Wolves are going down. Yes, West Ham are going down. Yes, Forest or Brentford. I don't know. I'm not yet ready to say who the third team is. I mean, of course, Wolves. What Wolves fans will be clinging to was that this time last year they were also the worst side in existence with a point or no points or whatever, and they fought their way back from that. But I think if you're a Leeds fan, and we'll talk about this more next week, but 3 wins from 9 is not a bad return at all. And you think how long it took for the newly promoted teams last season to get to that mark, and the fact that Leeds have got there already is, I think, is positive.
Can I have a guess at what your park run time would be if you were going to run it this weekend?
What my time would be?
Yeah. Like, I feel like you have. I feel like I don't actually know this, but I reckon you've got some good park run times in on your record. I'm going to guess you're around the 25 to 26 minute mark at the moment, and you take that.
I'd definitely take. I'd definitely take 25. I think my park run PB is 23:45, but that was a couple of years ago, and I'm nowhere near. I wouldn't be nowhere near that now, particularly after this bout of bronchiolitis or the Black Death or whatever it is that I've picked up. So I'd take 26 actually at this stage. Particularly if I've been out for a meal the night before, slightly sluggish. Probably going to be an Italian restaurant. That seems to be all that Adam Pope is capable of booking. So maybe the carbs will help. I don't know, but we'll see. Or maybe what might happen is I might think, I haven't had a single lie-in this week because I have a lot of children. Maybe this is my chance, my deserved reward is to lie in Brighton and then go for a little stroll instead of a run. Wish I hadn't mentioned the run now, because now I feel like there's a level of accountability and pressure on it.
I'll be checking in next week with Graham's park run time, and if the 26-minute pacer is listening, keep an eye out for our Graham and hopefully get him round. All right, mate. Yeah, have a good one. Enjoy catching up with the rest of the Leeds media, and to all the fans listening, let's hope we get some more points on the board, and we'll catch up next week.
Bye-bye.